Hello. In this short video, I will be covering the setup of a blockchain and how you can get some basic functionality of a blockchain working and test that functionality. So we'll be using JavaScript in this particular instruction video, but you can actually use various amounts of different programming languages to actually program a blockchain. So what is a blockchain? Simply put, a blockchain is an immutable distributed ledger. This kind of seems like a complex way of explaining that, so let me break it down. A ledger is a collection of financial accounts or transactions. Put even simpler, it's basically a record of transactions that people have made. So, for instance, Kyle pays Kenny $40. The ledger then tracks that transaction. It now says something along the lines of Kyle has paid Kenny. And then another transaction happens, and let's say Stan pays Eric $80, and so that it'll show 80 here, and then here it'll be 40. So that's kind of like a rough understanding of how a ledger works. It's just a way to keep track of transactions made. A blockchain does a similar thing as a ledger, but it's also immutable. Immutable means that it cannot be changed ever. When a transaction is recorded, it cannot be undone. Some more factors in this will be the people that took place in the transaction. That can't be changed, can't be modified. So in the example of Kyle and Kenny, you can't replace Kyle with Stan and Kenny with Eric because those two didn't make that initial transaction. It can't be modified. So you always have a clear, precise understanding of who did what and how much. And it can't be modified in any way. So with that being said, let's go ahead and create our basic blockchain method. So we're going to create a directory. I'm going to go into my source repos area, and then cd source repos. Source repos, and then I'm going to create a directory called blockchain, and I'm going to cd into that, and then we're going to create another one called dev. And cd into that, and we're going to go ahead. I'm going to open this in Visual Studio Code because that's my editor of choice. And within this editor, what we're going to do is see we're in dev, so we're going to create some files. We're going to call them blockchain.js, and then the next one will be test.js, and then we are going to go ahead and do an npm init-y. And if you're unfamiliar with npm, don't worry. We'll cover a little bit more about how that works later on. Right now, just know you need to type npm init, which stands for initialize, and then the -y flag just makes it to where you don't have to answer any of the questions that it's going to ask you. And so it pre-populated all of these with answers, so you didn't have to go through and answer each one. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go into the blockchain file, and within that we're just going to create a basic function, and this is a constructor function. And what the constructor function is simply a function that creates an object class and allows you to easily create multiple instances of that particular class. So in simpler terms, it allows you to create a lot of objects very quickly. So with that being said, we're going to do function blockchain And then within here, this is going to take no parameters at the moment. So we're not going to put anything in here right now. So it'll be this dot chain is equal to an empty array. If you're coming from Python, this is an empty list. And then this dot new transactions is also going to equal an empty array. And so, like I said, we're not going to give it any parameters just yet. Later on, we will. So we are going to set two empty arrays, which we did, the this.chain and the this.new transactions. And then from there, the reason that we create these is because all of the blocks that we mine will be stored in the this.chain array, while this.new transactions is where we will hold all of the new transactions that are created before they are placed into a block. So now we can call down here blockchain dot prototype dot create new block equals, we'll do function, and then this one is going to take some parameters, and this is nonce previous block hash and hash. And now we're going to do a new variable called new block equals. So this object is going to be a new block inside of our blockchain. So all of the data that is going to be stored inside of this particular block will be stored here. We'll have an index property. So index this dot chain dot length plus 1, and then we'll do timestamp. We'll do date dot now. That's not right. Use a comma. Sorry. And then transactions. This dot new transactions. And the nonce, which will equal the nonce parameter. And then the hash, which will also equal the hash parameter. And previous block hash, which will also equal the previous block hash parameter. And so I'm just going to put a little bit of comments here. We're going to do the timestamp is we need to know when it was created. The transactions is put new or pending transactions that were just created in a new block. And then the nonce, so the nonce is, it's basically a proof of work concept that basically just lets you know that it's working. So in our case, it will be a number. And then the hash, this will be the data from our new block. We'll pass our transactions or our new transactions into a hashing function. And then the previous hash, this will deal with the previous data block hashed into a string. Okay, so with that, we have our basic blockchain prototype set up, and now we can add this dot new transactions equals, and what this is going to do is we do this because we create our new block, we are putting all of the new transactions into the new block. We want to clear out the previous block. I'm sorry, the previous transactions array so we can start the new block. And then here we've got this dot chain dot push new block. And this is basically pushing the information to our actual chain. And then we'll just do pushes data into new block. And then we will return new block. And basically adding the last two lines, so this dot chain dot push and return new block, our method is ready for testing. So we can do this. We can do module dot exports equals blockchain, and I'm not sure. Oh, so there we go. We can save this file. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to open up this test file, and we're going to basically create our test parameters for the blockchain. So we have const blockchain equals require blockchain, and what this is doing is this is importing all of the logic and code from this file. So we're basically importing this into here so we can use everything that's in this that we just created, this method. We can use all of this here in this file. And so now we will create our coin variable, and you can name it whatever you want. You don't have to name it exactly what I'm naming it. So we'll create this, and this basically will be our blockchain that we're creating, and we can console.log coin so we can actually see it. And so what I'll do is I'm just going to open up the terminal here, and I'll go ahead and run node test.js. Oh, I didn't save it. Okay, so now node test.js, and as you can see, it prints out our blockchain with the chain array and our new transactions array. Both of them are empty right now. So underneath here, what we're going to do is, I'm going to put some spaces. We're going to do coin create new block, and we're just going to give it the nonce is just going to be any number we want. And actually, all of the parameters we're going to do are anything you want to put in there. It doesn't matter. We're just using this for testing purposes, so it doesn't matter what we put in here. So I'm going to do 2450 for the nonce, and for the previous hash, I'll do O E A I U R D J K S L P Q. That sounds good. And then for here, we'll do another string, and we'll just, like I said before, we're just going to kind of randomly type some things here. Make it look like a hash string, basically. 2FXF4 7PQR. That sounds good. And then we'll go ahead and save. And now we should be able to run this, and it should print out the information that we gave it, which it does. Let me make this a little bigger. And so now you can see our blockchain, and now in our chain it has index of 1, because here in this file we have our index, and this is going to add 1 to it. So instead of, in programming languages you start at 0, so we add the +1, so it always starts at index 1. So index 1, and then the next one we create will be 2, and so on and so far, and however many you have. And then the timestamp, this is just the time that it was created in, looks like milliseconds, I believe. Actually, it's a date. You could actually stringify this if you wanted, but we're going to leave it like this for now. The nonce, which is our 2450 number that we put here, our hash, which is this here, and then the previous hash is just a string that we created because there isn't technically a previous data. There wasn't a previous block. So this is just here so we can actually print that, so you can see that it is taking that into account, and then it's printing out the new transactions here, which is an empty array. So with that being said, this was a super easy setup. Hopefully I covered the basics of everything, and I look forward to seeing you in future lessons. Thank you.